Okay.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to another edition of In the Moment. I'm your host, Michael D. Jones, and today our guest is Cindy Lippert. Cindy is an amazing, incredible woman. She happens to be my neighbor as well. She has a very eclectic background, which we're going to get into, but most importantly, which I want to touch upon, is her spirituality, or the essence that she is a now retired um, minister, I would say, of New Thought, of Unity. And I just want to explore that and talk to you kind of about that, have our viewers, hear your take on that and what it meant, and also this new chapter, this new phase of your life where you're at, because you've done a lot. So thank you, Cindy. I appreciate you coming on and being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm
Absolutely.
flattered. Yes.
Absolutely. Well, one of the things I want to kind of dive into is when I was a young boy, about 6 years old, my aunt and we discovered the first Church of Religious Science in Oakland, California. And it was one of these, I don't know, I guess the anchor churches stemmed from the Los Angeles Unity, whatever, off branch. I didn't know what it was, but I learned at a very early age affirmation cards, that there is just this omnipresence of the universe. It wasn't any religion. It was just like more, hey, anyone's here. We're going to just talk about manifestation and positivity and outward reaching and angels. And at the time, I'm like, I understood it, but I really didn't because, I think growing up, I learned a lot. Anyway, I want to hear from you. I don't want to talk about me. I want to hear from you because I find it interesting that you segued in from a place of business into all of a sudden becoming a minister. So I would love to hear that, please.
Okay. Well, I was raised in one of those anger churches you're referring to, but my grandparents were garden variety Southern Baptist, Billy Graham, that kind of thing. Very loving, sweet people.
Yeah.
But my mother remarried when I was 14, and we got into a fundamentalist church that fostered uh, Jerry Falwell, to give
Hmm.
you an idea. So that changed in a lot of ways. I was very restricted, lived a life that was counter to the freedom I had before. You can't smoke, drink, dance, or chew, or run with those that do. And girls couldn't wear slacks, and there were all these terrible. I said, this is not working for me. But I probably would never have gotten married if I hadn't married somebody in the church. So that's the short answer to that. So anyway, long story about basically it didn't work for me.
Mm.
And I got married young, had a baby 2 years later, and then by the time I was 25, I was a single parent. I was the happiest single parent in my life. So there is life after divorce for those who are wondering. But I began to study Ken Kai's Handbook to Higher Consciousness, Wayne Dyer, winning through, or no, that's Ringer. Uh, I apologize.
Yeah.
Your erroneous zones. That's it. And that was Dyer's first segue into reinterpreting
Mm.
all the Unity books. You mentioned Unity.
Mhm.
But I had always been in business, marketing, promotions, all kinds of, high level things like that. I got into computer software. I was a young executive, very young, and I burned out. And
Right.
about the time I burned out, my childhood friend died. She was like my sister.
Mm.
And I didn't know where she was. It sounds crazy, but I didn't know where she went. And she stayed in the church. And I had another friend that died a couple years later, and she stayed in the church.
Oh,
So
wow.
I had a lot of questions. Well, I'm a great believer. Um, when the student's ready, the teacher appears, and
Yeah.
my teacher appeared, and I mentored with her for 4 years.
Wow.
And she helped me understand that I was loved unconditionally,
Mm.
no matter what, no matter what I'd ever done. Every day you get a do-over. Every day you get a fresh start.
Love it.
And my only job on earth was to give and receive love. And I said, you don't know who I am. You don't know what I've done. And she said, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because every day is a new start. So that got me on a path. I asked her one day, what do you know about Course in Miracles? And she
Yeah.
said, well, anything with miracle in it's got to be good. So I went to Course in Miracles. I met a lifetime friend. I only had to go to Course in Miracles one time, met a lifetime friend.
Nice.
And she loved Unity. And she sent me a subscription to Daily Word.
Oh yeah.
And I became ravenous about this teaching of an idea of instead of an old man in the sky trying to decide if I'm naughty or nice, running the world by whim, uh, bipolar got off his meds and, whoever has the most likes gets prayed for. So that just did not work. And scientifically, it made no sense to me. So anyway, I just gobbled it up. I love New Thought, and one thing led to another, and I got involved with one of the earliest denominations of New Thought, and I got into their seminary. I got ordained. I found another mentor for the next 4 years and built a church, co-founded a seminary, and on and on and on. So anyway.
No, I love that. And that's fantastic because, what I appreciate about, it's funny because there's some meme going around now. And again, it's a comedian talking about religions and the message. And he goes, at the end of the day, it's just the message. And, everyone's got their own thing. And I totally get that. But what I love about the Unity New Thought practice, again, is just this idea of this omnipresent universe. Spirituality, it is not just some person, a man, like, blah, blah, blah. And then there's the devil underneath the ground. All the fear when I kind of grew up before I learned this, all that fear, it's like, no, oh my gosh, it's so much easier when you just broaden your mind and you open up. And I think as we get older and we see a lot of different things in life and transitions and things that we can't explain, etc., I find it fascinating and amazing, this new spirituality that we're kind of finding ourselves in. For a lot of people, opening themselves up to crystals, to, even just meditating, there's this euphoric state and feeling just like, oh my gosh. And, it doesn't have to be a religion. It is just, a practice of giving, like you said, giving and receiving love. That is so hard for people to do. And I think for you as a minister, that's got to be daunting only in the sense because, as a minister, everyone's probably just going to you all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Cindy, here's my problem. Here's my this. Help me, help me, help me. And I'm sure that probably in turn kind of burns you out as well. So how did you handle that? And what are some of the things that you learned or lessons that you gleaned from that?
My passion for the teaching was what really carried me as long as it did. Most ministers burn out within 3 years. We can hardly get them ordained in time to get them in their churches or to help them found churches. And today it's harder than ever to get somebody actually in the room. The most successful churches are going to online services and have a 7 day a week, 24/7 type ministry that it's not just church on Sunday anymore, like you said. The burnout was what we're finding out now. In fact, I posted on Facebook an article that just hit today about ministers burning out, and it's very serious, and there's very few I'll say coaches, counselors that can really understand, because as a minister, you have, like, at any given moment, 1,000 little intensive care patients that are pulling from you. They are your world. You are not their world. It's
Right.
an inverse relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got to create a safe space for them. How I handled burnout is I tried everything. I'm a great student of all kinds of modalities. Like you said, New Thought, by the way, is over 150 years old and gets confused with New Age all the time.
Yeah.
But we don't mind that, because if that leads you to, peace and love and understanding, that's the idea. But how I handled burnout is I did meditation. I did Thai massage. I had a personal trainer. I did acupuncture. Drank, of course, I drink water and, don't smoke, all that.
Right.
And that helps. And the problem, the problem is sometimes the only way to you just have to remove yourself from it's just I had a call one day from a dear friend and I said I'll call you back and give me 15 minutes.
Right.
2 weeks later I remembered that she called.
Yeah.
You're working out of your home, you're always doing research, you're reading to keep ahead of the congregation, the newest book, the newest thing.
Yes.
You hit your church office, you're seeing people, sometimes you don't get home till 10 o'clock, and you have classes and you have board meetings, and it turns out people on your board are not on the same spiritual wavelength the minister is.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that's
And yeah,
right. And that's got to be tough because again, you're exerting all this energy and all this outward stuff. And again, I find it fascinating, then how do you receive that?
yeah.
How do you recharge yourself? And at that time when you were a minister, how did you recharge yourself? It's like, oh my gosh, I need to take a moment. I need spirit to fill me or give me that energy. How did you kind of cope with that?
One of the things we did is we bought a retreat house. We were in Kansas at the time,
Okay.
and we bought a house in the mountains in Prescott, Arizona. And I would go, I would get groceries, I'd lock myself in, stay there all week, and
Nice.
Sunday show up at a
Right,
New
right.
church. Yeah.
Oh my
So
God.
stuff like that. Yeah.
I love
But
I love
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Also, too, I mean, now that you're no longer a minister and I'm not sure if you practice it, but again, I know one of the big questions always about what happens, where do we go, and again, it's sort of like, all right, listen, we're human beings. We don't have the exact answers. We can have an idea or a belief. And again, lots of things have happened to people. I've had some experiences happen to me that have been, non-earthly. And they've been, experiences, and I take it. I'm like, okay, so have you had that, or how do you feel about the so-called afterlife, reincarnation, or what does and where does spirit go? And just in your opinion, there's no right or wrong. Just wondering.
I'm glad you're asking that question because literally that's what got me into seminary, into spirituality, is I didn't know where my friend went. And so all those years later, guess what? I still don't know, but I
Yeah,
know that no minister does know. There are
right,
ministers that will tell you
right.
whatever their belief is, but what we know about beliefs is they're just well-rehearsed opinions.
Yeah,
You
I love
know,
that. I love.
no, yeah, there's no scientific proof. So therefore, then, okay, so a congregant came up to me after church one Sunday, and she said, "Cindy, I believe when I die, I'm going to see my mother and go to heaven." And I said, "Does that give you comfort?" And
Mm,
she said, "Yes." And I said, "Then hang on to that thought. I don't know." Now, that sounds to some people like, well, what kind of faith is that? For me, the idea that I am inextricably fused within every cell fiber of my being
right.
with the thing that beats my heart, breathes my lungs without even me thinking about it or asking about it,
Mhm.
that same power I can direct to a certain degree with my mentality, with my subconscious. We can't seem to do it 100% of the time. Why? Don't know. I have a lot of questions.
Yeah.
But it it has given me more control than I ever dreamed possible by giving up control, if that makes
Mhm.
sense.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I'm sure that's got to be tough because, again, life is interesting and I find it amazing. And I think in the past few years, all that's going on, or it has been going on, there's definitely an awareness, and you definitely see, I feel a lot of people have been more gravitating towards, again, this new spirituality, calmness, mindfulness, words that we're using a lot more and going within. And again, I don't know what happens to us, but I love your idea, your analogy of just basically whatever say I believe or you believe or whoever out there, if it gives you comfort, then
Right.
that's the answer, because there is no right or wrong. And yes, you
No.
can read books, and everyone has their own story. And again, there's multiple people who have come back from the brink of death or whatever, and they have the story. And I think it's amazing, beautiful. And I do believe that I believe that there's something out there. I don't know what it is, but I believe everything. It's sort of like, we're all living this math quantum continuum of energy. That's the thing I love. We're just big balls of energy. I
Yeah.
love that movie. I think it's called 21 Grams. I don't know if
Oh,
you've seen it, but the
uh-uh.
whole point is when the body dies, 21 grams,
Oh,
that's your soul. And I loved it.
yes. Yeah,
And I just
I
always
have.
thought that was a good analogy of just like we're
Yeah.
21 grams of this burst of energy and we're just bopping around. So I love what you said. If just to that young lady, if that brought you comfort, then go with that. And,
Yeah.
and that's it.
Yeah. I'm not here to talk anybody out of anything that
Yeah.
gives them comfort. I know way too many mainstream Christians that are terrified of death,
Yeah.
and they've been baptized multiple times and they still have no comfort. They still have no peace. They have all this guilt.
Yeah.
And it's like, maybe you need a new thought.
Yeah.
I believe Jesus had a new idea about Judaism. It
Mhm.
took 700 laws to be a good Jew.
Wow.
And the Jews were in slavery. They didn't have time to be good Jews. It was very defeating. Jesus came along and said, wait a minute, it's about the spirit of the law, not the letter of the law. I've had people say to me, you were a minister, you're a female. How does that work? And I said, it depends on how you're reading the Bible. If you're
Yeah.
reading the Bible through a misogynistic 2,000-year-old mentality, if
Yeah.
you are looking at it as a scholar, not a theologian, you will discover that there was never a restriction on who could lead a church.
Yeah.
So it's just made up.
Yeah.
And, but let me tell you, it is still, even in 2024, more of a challenge for a
Mhm.
female minister in a pulpit.
I know it's just sad. I mean, we look at everything and sort of like, there's beliefs and opportunities, and I'm still amazed how so many people are still living in our archaic days, so to speak, in the sense like open your mind. It's like, come on, just
Yeah,
let it go. Can't you
yeah.
see the progress? Can't you see the happiness and the joy that we have and where we can go? But everyone's so close-minded and they're so by the book, letter of the law. And like you said, okay, yeah, it's a good system to go by, but you don't have to live by it, so to
Well,
speak.
yeah. Well, we have weaponized minds. We've been told a lot of things that just really aren't true.
Yeah.
And a lot of religious institutions know that they must indoctrinate a child at a very young age. Oddly enough, the Kabbalists, the Jewish Kabbalah teachers,
Mhm.
know that you really shouldn't study Kabbalah until you're at least 50 years old, because
Wow.
you haven't had the life experience.
Yeah.
New thoughters tend to be older. You tend to come into it older in life because you get it. You've been shot at. You've lost people in your lives. I've lost so many friends. We've been bankrupt. I mean, not us, but people have been bankrupt and lost jobs and had heartache of all kinds. And how do you tell a person to live another day? How do you tell them to find peace of mind? If you're depending on an old big daddy in the sky to
Yeah.
look kindly on you, you might be very disappointed.
Yeah, it's is amazing, and I think Rich and I touched upon that when we had our session. Sorry, I'm gonna pause for a second. My computer froze for a second. Sorry,
Okay,
I don't know what's.
no problem.
I've turned everything off, um, but you know how computers are. They don't want to listen.
No, they don't, especially today. We can blame it on the weather.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. All right, sorry. Let me get out of all this. Get back here. Okay. All right. So
Good.
sorry, we're
Yeah,
continuing.
that's
Um,
okay.
So, I mean, and so thank you for all that because, I'm always trying to open myself up to listening and what works and what doesn't. And that's why I'm just grateful to be alive. And I'm grateful to be alive in this time, in this age of I have free will. I can think. I can pick and choose certain books. There's certain esoteric books that people you have to read this, and I just don't get it. Like
Yeah.
I've tried; those don't work for me, but other ones do, and that's why I love what works for different people and what you pull away and take from. Like, okay, great, and I just love this idea of never stop learning. I always want to be
Yeah.
questioning and learning and reading. I'm like, oh, okay, what's this? What's that? And I just love this idea of what's out there, this
Yeah.
excitement. And, we live where you and I live out here in New Mexico. We live in a place where um, there's an ordinance where we don't have a lot of street lamps. And so we see all the stars and it's every night it's perfect. And I remember, a few months ago, I'm looking up at the sky and I see this thing and I'm recording it. I'm swearing it's a UFO and I call the news and it turns out it was just this Elon Musk, Starlink thing going by.
Uh,
The moment I'm like UFOs, I'm all
yeah.
excited.
Yeah.
And again, I don't want to stop believing and thinking, but I just, it's like I love that idea of just looking at the stars and just this vast universe and this knowledge that we receive and how we can reinterpret it or rechange things around and then also to just give it back in some way. I find that interesting. And so I value what you've done and what you've accomplished because again I think it takes a lot for someone to say, hey, I want to be a minister, I want to do this, I want to devote this time, because I can understand it could be a lot, when people are coming at you all the time, but it's great that you have an outlet.
Yeah, well, the thing about ministry, we try to talk people out of it because it's not. I had a man come to me one time. He said, "I think I'm being called into ministry." I said, "Tell me why." He said, "Well, I think I'm being called to preach and teach." I said, "Okay, that's not ministry though." And he looked at me and I said, "If you're talking yourself into ministry, that's not ministry.
Right, yeah.
Ministry is something you can't not do.
Hmm.
If you go kicking and screaming. Somebody captured a picture of me. I was at a workshop in Cleveland,
Hmm.
and I'm sitting on a bench, and we were all assigned a scripture to meditate on, and then to write what popped up. And I was sitting there sobbing
Hmm.
because I knew there was no way out. I was going to have to take this next step, and I did
Yeah,
not want to. I knew it was going to be huge.
yeah.
The thing I wanted to say, you touched on science. I follow Neil deGrasse Tyson a lot.
He's great.
And, the thing is, it is a miracle that you and I are here. He talks about the almost infinite, well, the infinite possibilities of
Hmm.
all the eggs that never got fertilized,
Yeah.
all the people that were never born, and here we are.
Mhm.
And we think, well, it's not unusual. It's very unusual.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, coupled with that, we have no idea why we're here. We don't.
Yeah.
And when people say, "Oh, I'm looking for my purpose," your purpose is what enlivens you, what gives you passion. That's your purpose. Well, what if it changes? Then it'll be a different purpose.
Yeah.
I've had many different purposes
Yeah.
in my life, and I hope I have more.
Well, okay, so let's segue in that. So what is your purpose right now? What is bringing you joy at this point in your life?
Enjoying my home and my husband and getting up every day, knowing I might get an audition, which is exciting.
Nice.
And I get to work on that craft and create a character. I have the privilege of being able to tape it and turn it in.
I love it.
And just the process of that alone is great. I've had, as you know, I've had a pretty challenging life, and I tend to have an on and off switch.
Hmm.
I either go 1,000 miles an hour or I stop. And there were days as a single parent, I had to be in my office chair at 8 o'clock, which meant I had to get my son ready. I had to get him dressed, drop him off at school. Then I had to get to work. And if you've ever had to coax a little human being into that, you understand. And being a single parent back in the day when there was no name single parent,
Yeah.
it was a challenge. So I think back on that, and today I'm just really happy. The other thing that gives me joy is anytime when I encounter someone and I realize there was a woman in the grocery store the other day started talking to me.
Oh,
And
nice.
before we got away, she was in tears.
Ah,
And she had been alone at Christmas
mhm.
and she's older. And I just told her there's no reason for anybody to be alone at Christmas time ever. There
Yeah.
just isn't. There's too many of us with
Yeah.
homes and turkeys and
Yeah. Yeah.
tables and,
Oh,
so those kinds of things.
mhm. I love well also too, I know you're focusing on acting, and like I say, I know you're touching upon that. And that is something that is bringing you joy. And I know that you're active with this community theater. I don't want to say it's a community theater, but it's a group that you and Richard have. It's a collective. It's a
Oh,
community of actors coming together, and I find that that's great. You know, Richard and I touched upon that, and I think too that seems to be something again like you have excitement. You're in this phase right now. I don't want to say phase, but your purpose, your current purpose of the acting and finding joy, and I think that's wonderful because you have this well-rounded experience, which is great, which you can bring to your characters and having that slice of life, and again having those skill sets. But so I mean, what are you going after right now? Are you going after feature films or TV, or are you doing any writing?
all of the above. All of the above. I'm a compulsive journaler. I write every day,
I
and
love it.
I don't know that I'll ever write a screenplay, but you never know. But I write. Richard and I co-authored a book,
Yeah.
and but as far as acting, I came into it late in life. I was 65. And, he came home one day and said, "You want to take an acting class with me?" I thought it was like underwater basket weaving. I thought, "Oh, yeah, okay, I'll take a class with you." I did two sermons every Sunday. Wow,
Yeah.
two crowds back to back, no big deal, thousands of people. So I can do that. I had no idea how hard it was. I had no idea, and I tried to quit. I did
Mhm.
after 3 months. We were trying to do improv.
Mhm.
And by the way, anybody that thinks they can do improv, please go take a class, learn how to do it, or just do it,
Yeah.
and you'll understand because it is a wonderful creative art form.
Yeah.
But anyway, I ended up studying nonstop 4 years, every class I could take, and he and I both just became very passionate about this craft. I'm also an artist, so it's just another way for me to express myself creatively.
Yeah.
But what I'm going after, Michael, I hope that I continue for as long as I can, who knows, to be a contender, to be considered, and to have the opportunity, like I have had on several wonderful occasions.
Right.
I started out doing a lot of commercial work and things like that, but we both wanted to get into film TV. And you know, I am very interested in complex
Mhm.
characters that don't get seen very often.
Yeah, I think it's nice, and what I love, that's what I love about, the indie movies, the artsy ones. You kind of do see some rare things. And I do feel right now there are some really good voices, or when you see strong acting, and I'll say by, some of the female artists that are out there, or just opportunities that are being written and seeing and stories now that weren't thought of a few years ago. And I do like this idea of, you know, the floodgates are open and everyone's got a story. And I think it's fantastic what's happening. And again, you're saying you're starting late. No, you're not. You're just starting early. I mean, and that's the thing, because
Yeah,
again, like you just said, the student has to be ready for the teacher. Well, you weren't ready, but now you are.
yeah.
And this, this acting, all this stuff, that is your new process. Like, oh, well, now, Cindy, we've been waiting for you. We need you to go do all that other stuff. So now, well, let's go on this ride.
To do
And
this.
yeah,
Well, the thing about you asked me what kind of parts. Um, I don't like the way older women are being portrayed still. It's very
yeah,
stereotyped.
yeah,
And you see that come in on the auditions. It's like, a woman of 60 And you can tell they really don't want somebody 60. They want somebody 70 or 80. But it's like their vision of what that looks like
Right.
is so different. And, our generation has broken every barrier our whole lives. And of course, we're doing this the same way. We're not going to go down easily or quickly. But the fact is that older people are getting married again. They're
Yeah.
finding their sweethearts from high school, and we know a lot of people like this. I bet once a week we hear about this.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, and it's not this, oh, well, she's doing fine considering she's 70, 80 years old or whatever. I have an 86-year-old friend that has a 65-year-old boyfriend. I mean,
I love
so
I love
so
it.
those kinds of stories, I think, plus
Mhm.
the baby boomers, especially the women, have stories that will never be told if
Yeah.
we're not careful.
Yeah. It's amazing. I mean, it really is. I was born in 1970, and so I've seen a lot. I've witnessed a lot in this growth, and being the father of a daughter, and just all of that. And again, I'm always amazed um, at everything. And I'm still learning. I'm still growing. I'm like, okay, and I want to learn from everybody in every situation, older and younger, because I feel like we all have something to give, and I never want to stop. And I appreciate that about you too, because when we sit and talk, you're very genuine, you're very warm and very kind and open. And these are great qualities that you hopefully find in people. And it's tough nowadays because everyone's jaded or angry or bitter, blah 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 blah. But it's nice to have people that are still kind and gracious. And listen, at the end of the day, we're all human beings. We're all going to go through our shit, whatever. We have our good days and our bad days, and that's fine. But it's that core of who we are as a human, and taking that with us. And I think, I commend you. Listen, I was raised by a single mom, all that stuff. I was a single parent for a moment after I got divorced. I raised my daughter for a minute. I mean, so, you know, again, all these life experiences, and they keep changing us, and hopefully helping us grow in a creative, positive way, and not into a negative. You know,
Well, yeah, I agree with all of that. And the other thing that acting has done is it's given us the privilege of working with young people.
yeah.
And you are the age of our son. So, but our grandchildren, we have grandchildren from age 10 to 22.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
so it helps us stay current. And that is very important, I think. It's not okay to check out. It's not okay not to know what pop culture, what's
Mhm.
going on. It isn't.
Yeah.
You can get distance from all of that so rapidly. But you talk about we're all going through our own stuff, and here's the thing that people don't realize. Uh, I've never been this age before. I have no idea how to navigate this.
Right.
And
Exactly.
inside, you're still maybe 30,
Yeah.
but you're still changing, and the terrain is changing, society is changing, the way younger people talk to each other,
Hmm.
and the way we talk to you. If we offend you, it's because that's the way we're used to communicating.
Yeah.
And so then there's all this,
Mhm.
to understand about. But
Well,
uh
that's the thing. You have
yeah,
to, you have to understand in life, we're all going through something. And
yeah,
it's one of the things when I do my teaching and I teach the students um, about having rhino skin on set.
yeah,
And again, because someone's going to show up to work and you don't know what's going on. They were probably maybe, involved in some road rage on the way in. They had a fight with their loved one or whatever it is. They're bringing that to work. And all of a sudden, all you say is, "Good morning, want a cup of coffee?" And they snap at you. It's not really at you. It's just something. And I've learned over the years to not take things personally. And
yeah,
I value, I'm like, oh, okay. And I check in. Is everything all right? And I say, what's really going on? Then they kind
right.
of open up. And so I think it's interesting, again, as we're growing and as you get older, you learn to appreciate and understand these things. You're like, oh, okay, you know what? so-and-so's having a bad day. I was having a bad day the other day, and I was being a little bit, only child, whatever, withdrawn from my girlfriend, and she had to pull some stuff out of me because, if I was in my mind, oh, that's my alarm. Sorry. I have all these noises. I'm still learning this, the Zoom thing. So that was the timer going up anyway.
I didn't even hear it. So
Okay. Maybe it's not just on my side. It was some
that
like,
could be. Could be.
So with that, I'm gonna wrap this up and say,
Okay.
is there anything, Cindy, that you would like to relate to our viewers, or any, you know, words of wisdom, sage advice?
Boy, I wish I had some. Uh, the thing is, I grew up around a lot of older people, my grandparents, whom I adored, and older aunts and everything. And I just always so admired their wisdom.
Yes.
And I always had older friends.
Mhm.
Well, now I'm the older friend. And it turns out nobody wants to hear what you have to say, you know. So, if there's any word at all, it's what I heard Tom Hanks say the other day,
Uh,
and that is, this too shall pass.
there you go.
This too
That is
shall
true.
pass.
That-
Both good and bad. When you're celebrating, this too shall pass.
yeah.
If it's a bad day, this too shall pass.
Yeah. I mean, that's all we can do. And I love to, I have the same analogy. Every morning I wake up, it's a new day. How do I best use that time that's given to me? Because I'm so grateful for that time. And, yeah, how do I make the world a better place? How do I make myself a better person? How do I learn and grow and challenge myself? And that way I am prepared for the afterlife.
Whatever that is. Maybe it's a
Exactly.
big,
Whatever
maybe
that
it's a,
is.
right. Maybe it's a big sleep. People are usually shocked when you ask a minister, what do you think happens? I don't know.
Yeah, but I love it because I think
Yeah,
that's being just truthful and honest. Because when people try, well, it's like no one
yeah,
knows.
no.
Not a single
Yeah,
person knows. We have ideas and
yeah,
analogies and conceptions, but there
right.
is no 100%,
No.
and that's it. So,
Yeah. Keanu Reeves was asked, what do you think happens when you die? And
hmm,
he took a deep breath and he said, I think our loved ones will miss us.
wow, that's beautiful. I love
Isn't that
that.
great?
Smart one.
Yeah.
Cindy, thank you so much for
Yeah.
taking the time to being here. I appreciate it. Um, I value you, and I want to say thank you because this is a new forum for me, and I really want to have just different people's slice of life. And so, thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate you too.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Right.
So, thank you, everyone. Stay tuned for another episode of In the Moment. I'm your host, Michael, and I will see you next time. Bye.